All right. All this meeting of the Topsham Select Board to order. Donald A. Russell Meeting Room, and it's June 17th, 2025. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ryan Holmes.
Here.
Marie Brilliant.
Here.
Roland Tubbs.
Here.
Ann Callahan.
Here.
And Nat Nixon.
Is he online?
Excused. He's not online.
Okay. All right, town manager report.
Beginning Monday, July 28th, nomination papers available for the select board. 2 seats are up for election this year. Papers must be returned by Friday, September 5th at 3 p.m. On Tuesday, July 29th, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., a representative of Senator Collins' office will be at Town Hall to be available for constituent service hours. If you're having trouble with federal administrative agencies, such as issues with the IRS about taxes, Department of State about a passport or visa, issues with Social Security benefit or your Social Security benefits, they may be able to help you get those issues resolved. They were able to successfully resolve an issue for a former town employee with the Social Security and plan to come by periodically to see if they can help other town residents. On Tuesday, August 5th, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Topsham Fire Department, Police Department, Public Works, Parks and Rec, and our Bowdoin interns are hosting National Night Out at the Forsyth Field. Come enjoy a hot dog expertly cooked by our Public Works crew, watch a canine or ladder truck demonstration, run the inflatable obstacle course, and much, much more. And on Friday, August 15th, from 8:30 a.m. to 12 o'clock p.m., the Maine Public Education team will be at the transfer station to share information on our expanded recycling program. Essentially, we can now do all plastics, numbers 1 through 8, as long as they're clean. And finally, it's Topsham Fair time. Artist racing will be on Sunday, August 3rd and Monday, August 4th. All the rest of the fair runs Tuesday, August 5th through Sunday, August 10th. And for those that want to know when Elvis will be in the building, it will be on Wednesday, August 7th at 7 o'clock p.m. That's all.
Next up, board and committee reports and updates. Fire department update on Maine EMS Phoenix Award presentation. Chief McLaughlin.
This on? Yes. Good evening, Chris McLaughlin, Fire Chief. Maine EMS started something new a couple of years ago where they give out what they call a Phoenix Award. I'll read a little excerpt. Maine EMS is happy to recognize someone from your services who used the skills, knowledge, and participate in the successful resuscitation of a patient who experienced an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest and as a result can lead a neurologically intact life. This call, there was a call for a person slumped over the steering wheel on 201. When our crews got there, they weren't breathing, they had no pulse. They put him on the cardiac monitor, did CPR, shocked him. He ended up getting a pulse back, still unconscious, but ended up being treated in the hospital and walked out of the hospital. Typically with cardiac arrests, the success rate, if we can get 20%, that's great. And of those 20, not all of them lead a full life afterwards. So this is a pretty good feat. Maine EMS recognized it. And I got some members here who are on that call. I'm gonna have them come up, get their certificates from Maine EMS. Caitlin Jacob. Michael Allen. And Monica Johnson. We do have another member, Tyler Tripp, that was on this call as well. We mailed him his certificate. He wasn't able to make it tonight. And if we could get a picture for Amanda. Sure. Might as well turn it out.
Yes, we can every picture.
I don't like it.
I was trying to get out of it.
Okay. Right.
So.
Very much. Appreciate all your help. Public comment, any?
None.
Okay. Correspondence, anyone have any this week?
None.
We do have an adjustment to the agenda, we'll be adding 25-59 to the end of tonight's agenda. Consent calendar, nothing for tonight, the public hearings. Next up, unfinished business, 25-28, consideration of any appropriate action on a request to restore TIF for Union Park Drive.
And I'd like to call up Jay Coleman. Should I be presenting or operating anything or? Or
Computer.
Totally up to you. Yeah, I wasn't gonna make a presentation. I was just gonna verbally.
maybe just talk about the
Explain.
four, your kind of final offer of the 4 items or
Yep.
stuff or whatever.
Exactly, yeah, we thought we've talked over with the select board several different formats and options and seen different interests, pros and cons, so we presented 4 options to Mark, to you a couple weeks ago and said these economically for us are quite similar, but for a town they're somewhat different. You may prefer one or the other for different reasons. So option A was a 60% TIF in a straight line for 30 years with 10 units at 80% AMI, which is far below market rate rents, and 50 units at up to 120% AMI, which complies with the Maine housing TIF, which all 4 of these would. Option B is one we had discussed as well, where it's kind of front loading the TIF, so it'd be 10 years at 75%, 10 years at 50%, 10 years at 25%, which would average out to 50. At that, we can do 8 units at 80% AMI and 52 at 120% AMI. Option C was probably the simplest of all worlds. It's simply a 50% straight line for 30 years TIF. At that, we can, because it's a lower TIF rate, we were able to do 5 units at 80% AMI and 55 at 120. And if the town wanted a shorter duration, the current TIF district, I believe, is 16 years. So at that, we need a higher rate, which would be 75%, which would give us 6 units at 80% AMI and 54 units at 120% AMI. So I apologize if that's confusing, but that's, we tried to give you options to select from of what best meets the town's needs. And if that's something that you're open to for an affordable housing component of this development, we appreciate working with you.
I think what I'd like to do now is call our board interns up.
So they'll come back to questions after.
Yep, both he and our interns will be able for questions after. So what our interns did is at the last meeting, you were asking for recommendations from me. And then once he gave us his sort of final options there, the interns took on as a project to do some analysis, look at all the formulas and see how much the TIF would actually cost us or not. And so they could make a recommendation if it was a good idea. I've supervised their work, reviewed it, and their recommendation is also my recommendation. So now I'd like to call Maya Nicholas and Miles Palmer up to explain their work and go through their recommendations. Maya, I'll promote your computer. Make sure to share.
Is it okay if can you not see if I stand here? Would it be
No,
better?
you're okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm Miles and this is Amaya. You guys have seen us before, but so over the past month or so, we've spent a lot of our time so far doing tax shift analysis for this TIF for Union Park Road. And we've also considered housing needs for Topsham and had conversations with a few people to kind of try and understand what the town needs and what Maine needs as a whole. And yeah, we've come to a recommendation with Mark's help. So This is me. So yeah, you just heard about these options, but here they are written out. We have highlighted option A, that's the one that we are going to recommend. We were kind of looking at option A and option C as our top two choices, with the key difference being option C is 50-50, option A would be 60% for the developer and 40% for the town. But there are 10 units at 80% AMI for option A and 5 at 80% for option C. And we'll explain why we think that that's a desirable thing for option A.
Okay, first we're gonna walk you through our numbers, what we found for the tax shift here. So we worked off of the tax shift formulas on the Hackmatack Road TIF that we already have. And then we got some numbers for the town budget and valuation for the town from the assessing office and town manager's office. And then we met with John Hodge of the Brunswick and Topsham Housing Authority to find out about like the environment for affordable housing, how much does it cost to build and what is the need for it. And then we also met with a couple of people about the state or about the school district formulas, because those are pretty complicated. So at the state level and the district level, and we're gonna walk you through all of those. Okay. So there's like 3 prongs to how we have what the tax shift is, and the first one is the county tax shift. So the county tax shift, the way that this works is basically in this TIF, we're like hiding the new value from the county. So they are charging us as if we don't have that new value. So the first step in calculating how much money we're saving here is just what the county state valuation is. So that's how much the county is worth according to the state. And then step 2 is the average new value of the district. That is how much the developer estimates that development will be worth, which is 40 million minus what it's worth right now. And that's that average new value, step 2. And then step 3 is what our current share of the county tax is. So that's just what Topsham is worth divided by what the county is worth. And then step 4 is what our share would be if that new district were added, so if it were not hidden in this TIF. So that's just our value plus the value of the new district divided by the value of the county plus the value of the new district. And as you can see, we're shifting from carrying like 19.5% of the county to 19.8% if that new value is added without hiding it in a TIF. So the percent difference that is 1.893. And then step 5 is just how much we pay in county taxes. 1.893% of that is 44,000. So by hiding that money from the state, we're saving that much money in county taxes.
All right, so next up, this one's a little bit more complicated, so bear with me. This is the school district tax shift. So I'll show you a little more zoomed in version for the top half there. So as Amaya said, with the TIF, we are essentially hiding some value from the school district in this case, or the state and district. We have one column with the TIF and one without the TIF. We're comparing what would happen with the TIF and without it. And the first thing we looked at was the number of students. We thought that a conservative estimate would be that 10 new students would be added to Topsham's share of pupils in the county, or in the school district. And that actually doesn't end up mattering, because with or without the TIF, if the site goes up, those 10 students will be there. So the percentage of pupils doesn't change. But what does change is the state municipal valuation, as in the county tax shift case, and that's what's gonna really cause the change here. So you can see we add around 39 million without the TIF. So with the TIF, there's a lower percentage, it's 29.3% versus 29.94% of the district pupils is Topsham's. So there are 2 formulas that determine how much Topsham's gonna pay to the school district. The first one being a state determined kind of required local contribution. And that one is just a state determined mill rate times valuation. So since our valuation is lower with the TIF, that's where the bulk of the savings is. You can see these numbers here, without the TIF, they'll expect around 240,000 more than with the TIF. And then the other source is
So that's the state, which is the essential services or the essential school budget that they believe the district needs, but then the district has some more expenses that they would like the municipalities to make up for. So that's right here, and that is determined with this cost sharing percentage. That is the average of the enrollment percentage and the valuation percentage. And so if you average, or if you just look at those two sources, it ends up being $196,000 of savings for the school district. So that's the majority of the savings in that your statement.
That was the most confusing one, so it should be better from here on out. But also we should specify that when we're talking about like with TIF versus without TIF, we're talking about if this were to be built and we gave it a TIF versus if we didn't give it a TIF. So like if you still had that new value, but you're hiding it versus keeping it there. Okay, state revenue sharing. The way that this one works is that the state has like a pot of money that it gives out to different towns, and it decides how much to give to each town based on this formula where it uses a computed number. And the computed number is like a combination of population, property tax levied, and the worth of the town, the valuation. So it's the shift here is like we would get more money if our town is worth less. So if we're artificially like lowering the value, then or not lowering it, but not raising it with the new value from the district, we get more money from the state. Okay, I'll explain it better. So step one is the computed number without a TIF. So with that new value, we have our population. We're adding people who live in this district, but it ends up not mattering because that would be true whether there was a TIF or not a TIF. And so the computed number is population times the property tax levied divided by the town valuation. And that's step one. Step two, we're just adding this TIF. So it's population times property tax divided by the town worth with the TIF. And you can see there's like 85.7 versus 87.8. And then we just calculate the percent difference between those two numbers and apply that percent difference to the amount of money that we get in state revenue sharing. So it's a 2.3% difference, and we usually get that much money that Miles is highlighting in state revenue sharing. That's how much we got in 2025. So multiply those, and we're saving $39,000 here.
All right, so then here's the total. If you add those all up, that's $280,000 of savings. That's approximate, none of this is exact, but and that's would be, in 1 year. And sort of a note is that for the school district, the savings wouldn't be fully realized until around 3 years out from the district's creation, because the school formulas, they like average the 3 years before that year of the valuation. So, but then that ends up working out because on the back end, you get some extra savings even after the district's life is over. So yeah, this is just kind of treating as if 2025 data is the first year that full savings are realized.
Okay, so Miles just told you that we're saving a lot of money, but remember we're also giving a lot of money back to the developer in this TIF. So these are those options again. So under option A, we're giving 60% of our tax revenue back to the developer, and based on the value of the district, that is going to be around $300,000 for the first year. So this math is assuming that we go with option one. So Miles just told you that we're saving about $280,000 in that tax shift formula, but we're also giving $300,000 back to the developer. So 300,000 minus 280,000. We think that this is about a $20,000 difference per year. So this is also assuming that the town can use our share of the TIF, because TIF funds have to be used for like specifically allowed statutory purposes. If we can't use that, then it's not sheltered, so we don't get the benefit of the tax shift for that part.
Yeah, so sort of the key is that we can use that money, and then, as Mark likes to say, that we can use that money for things that we would have done anyways. So one thing we've identified is school costs for students in the district. This is allowed in the statute that if there are any school-age children in the district, not just in the affordable units, but in any of the units, 180 units on 4 Union Park, then you can give $20,894 per student per year. That's per state data, you know, that'll probably increase as the school budget increases and everything. And so Camoin Associates predicts 18 students in the district. And even if that doesn't pan out and there's 10 students, say, that'll still be enough, 10 times 20,000 is 200,000, that can be used. Our share is 200,000 is 40%. So school costs can be used as long as there's at least 10 students in the district. And if not, another thing is that Topsham needs a new ladder truck in about 10 years. And this will be one of the first few 4-story buildings in town. So we think we can justify a decent percentage of the ladder truck's cost with TIF funds because it's related to the creation of the district. So we'd like to create a reserve fund for that to prepare for that cost down the line. And then some other things that might come into play are water and sewer extensions in the district, then street improvements or traffic improvements in the area, and then a revolving loan fund to fund other affordable housing projects because housing is a need. So bottom line, we think that the cost can be used well, and that would realize the full savings from the tax shift to the town.
Okay, so based on our calculations, I just told you that we're losing about 20,000 a year if we did this TIF versus if it happened without a TIF, so you might be wondering why we should do it. And that's sort of the context of like that Topsham needs housing. So we have, and especially to fill in like what Mark calls the missing middle, which is, well, I don't think Mark made it up, but anyways, he just says it. But those units that are held at up to 80% of area median income are really helpful to fill in that missing middle, and that's one of the reasons that we think option A is the best, because we're getting the most of those units. So option A, you get 10 of those units kept affordable for 30 years, and also 50 units at 120% AMI. And we talked about that 120% AMI may not seem like it's really being held at affordable, but that still takes the burden off of those people, and it's a lot less than market rate. And we also had conversations with the planning department and with the Brunswick and Topsham Housing Authority that even providing additional market rate units, and this is gonna be 180 units, can lessen the stress across the board because you're just increasing the overall supply of housing. So we think that's important.
Yeah, so overall, given the need for affordable housing and general housing stock in Topsham, given the minimal estimated cost of granting a TIF for this project, which is $20,000 a year when, without looking at this tax shift, we thought it was gonna be $300,000 a year. So, it really becomes a lot more viable for the town. And then the ability to use TIF funds and various costs we were likely to incur anyways, which is a key issue. We recommend the town work with the developer to create a TIF presentation for option A for consideration at town meeting. Thank you.
First of all, it's shocking, 120% is that amount nowadays, because I think you also have a time warp that you can get a house for $1,000 a month, mortgage. The problem is now the interest rates are back up again, so that makes that number, even scarier. So the use of the fire truck, the ladder truck, so that's permitted, basically we have a sinking fund for over a period of time and then spend it.
Right.
Okay.
We did run it by the town attorney, and he thought our justification for using, say, a larger percentage than otherwise is the fact it's a 4-story building and you really need a ladder truck to rescue people from that. So he said he thought that would fly.
Is there a minimum number of students that need to fall in a TIF district in order to use those funds towards that?
The ladder truck or the school?
Just the funds themselves towards.
To use it for the school part, you basically need to have, you don't get audited every year by your exact count, but if we had 2 or 3 years with no students in it and we were still putting money towards education, that wouldn't work. So we roughly need to make sure there's roughly at least 10 kids going each year to there to be able to sleep comfortably, that we're not gonna have someone challenge the use of the money for school costs.
And if it doesn't happen that way, is 10 the number that has to be
Well,
kept, or is there a number?
3, then you could use 60,000. like theoretically, if you just multiply
There's no
by
minimum.
20, yeah, it's no minimum, but.
You just like, if it costs 20,000 per kid to send a kid to school for a year, and there's 4 kids, you can do that.
Did you guys run your numbers for the even more conservative number? What if no students showed up, or if kids showed up, would it make that big of a difference?
So for the tax shift, the number of students has no effect. It's all about the sheltered value or the hidden
The
value.
student piece of it only has to do with spending towards education.
Yeah, just for the ability to spend sheltered funds, yeah.
The tax revenues that you thought would be brought in, I thought I heard that you used the number 44 million for evaluation of the property.
Yeah, 40 million, it will be like the new value, or that'll be the value, and then, it's worth $1 million now,
That's like
so-
the taxable value that they think that's gonna be.
Yeah.
Isn't that far less than the cost of the building of that?
We were including soft costs, architecture, things of that nature that wouldn't fall into assessed cost or hard cost.
So it's gonna cost you more to build than it'll be valued at.
That's usually the case.
When you talked about the school funding for me, did your eyes glaze over?
We've worked with it enough that it's,
Well,
The
you
question
know
is, did your eyes?
Yeah.
You do know there's the legislative discretionary adjustment that can happen as well. So they can say, we're gonna give you 55%, and then all of a sudden, oh, we don't have enough money now, so we're gonna just reduce your check by a couple $1 million.
Yeah, there are a lot of
So-
variables in that.
You almost like, stress test this thing to a certain extent. Yeah, it's always kind of a guessing game what you're actually gonna get.
yeah.
Revenue sharing and everything, so.
That's definitely.
Question for the developer, what's the year? What's the total construction time?
About 18 months is our hope. Yeah, 18 to 24 months. There's some variables in there depending on when we can get started.
So are your numbers based on the day this opens up in terms of has occupants in? Is that what, analysis of that?
Yeah, we
Full value?
looked at the full value, yeah, so that's when this, full savings will, 3 years after that with the school, but.
Yeah, the TIF with Brunswick started after we opened. It didn't happen during construction.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I have questions.
Did you want to ask?
Yeah, I was waiting for you to say.
Of course I have questions. These are all gonna be for the developers, so. You're on.
Fantastic job.
Thank you for all that research. It's really good. The last time we spoke, we were getting some numbers on what the actual rents were gonna be based on 120 AMI and also based on the 80% AMI for a studio or 1 bedroom or 2 bedroom. Do you have that data?
I can go to my laptop and
Okay.
get it if we have a minute or two.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. And Jason, you may actually be able to share more readily than me if you've been at a computer.
Let me see if I can pull that up, Dave. So.
Jason Lord here. Yeah, hopefully I'll let him pull up our numbers for projected rents.
So what's the value of the property now?
About $1 million. Is that been a stable value, the million, or that's?
Yes, yeah, no, our assessment hasn't changed much in the 6 years that we've owned it. Yeah, we've kept it as an office building and went from all McTeague Higbee down to now a diversity of smaller renters.
Sure, the lots for everything else is.
Office is not a dearly loved asset class right now, but we've been able to make it work by having a lot of small diverse, there's a doctor, there's a lawyer, there's a radio station, there's a publishing company, engineering firm for BIW, there's a variety of different users in the building that keeps it full. Yeah, and then we will keep it that way throughout the construction. I mean, that's one of the many logistical challenges, the site is keeping 30 parking spaces for them and keeping that building up and running during the construction time. But afterwards, it'll be a great site, a great amenity. They can use, the gym facilities and some of the parking that will create. So it should be a mutual benefit.
why I'm interested in rents is we've been talking so much about percentages and,
Right,
you know, area median
Yep.
income and percentage of this and percentage of that. Numbers really matter when it comes to dollars and cents. And so I did some calculations based on one person, 2, 3, and 4 people, because it's not likely gonna be more than 4 people in an apartment. Or 2-bedroom apartment, so I did some calculations on that myself. And then I did just a quick calculation on what's the average income for an entry-level worker at Market Basket, and you know, we are not anywhere close to, let me just share a few of
Sure.
my numbers and then I'll
Sure.
listen to yours. So let's just say one person, the AMI is $72,240 for one person inside the Hub County. I got
Okay.
that off the HED Maine. And so using that 100%, the maximum affordable rent is 1806. But then you have to add 20% because you're doing 120 AMI. For the full one, so that's 2167, it goes from 1806 to 2167, a difference of, I didn't do the math, $300 a month.
Yeah.
And so, and then to take that and go to the 10 units that are gonna be less, that would be 1444. So based on this calculation, the lowest rent would be somewhere around 1444, and I wanted to know what your numbers were because maybe I didn't do this correctly.
No, that's right around what our affordable studio apartments are in the Sandpiper right now.
Okay,
You know,
Yeah,
So-
that's exactly correct. Yep, it's 1445 is what I have for 80% AMI for one adult.
okay. So when I'm doing calculations here and I'm looking at this and I take the average person at Market Basket, that's an entry level, they just opened the store, makes $15 an hour, multiply that times 40, multiply that times 52, divide that by 12, then do the 30%, which is the average of what a person should be paying for rent. We're looking at $780. So we're not gonna be really helping you go by the average, you know, but if the average for one person is 72 and average is for 4 is 103,000, what do we do for any of the people that are just, you know, out of high school and they've got jobs and, you know, what do we do with that as members of the board, you know, as a select board?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think what we've seen at Sandpiper is that we do have working class people in a lot of the units, both the deeded affordable and non. They're often in a couple, you know, that changes the
So they can afford
game.
more if there's 2 of them.
Exactly, that changes the game in a big way, but sometimes single and they might have a second source of income.
Or
or
roommates
something
or
like that.
something else.
Yeah, but it's not like a deeply subsidized affordable housing project like the type that the Brunswick Housing Authority would build, where the rents might be 40% of AMI or 60%, which are, you know, much deeper discounts off the market.
Right, I understand that this is for, you know, the average working person in town, but it's just something for us to think about in terms of what the rents look like. And was it you who said, Roland, about how mortgages are less expensive than some?
Well, it
Rentals?
depends on like what your tax rate is and everything. If you have a fixed rate mortgage, I mean, you know, that's one factor. If you're in a adjustable, you can do it.
We have police officers that can't find a place to live. We had one turn down a job offer a couple of years ago. They would fit, their wage would fit within some of these. They'd be making too much for the hack and attack.
Too much for
Not that I'm arguing a couple police officers pay, but I think we need a mix of all these things, you know, and John Hodges, the project was wonderful at Hack and Attack. That was getting a lot of free money from a lot of places, which Dave isn't getting for his project. And that's the type of project probably where your hourly worker at Market Basket, you know, can afford and would be. But if you get 2 people working in your family 40 hours a week, you're gonna make too much money to qualify for that one. So now, I mean, I'd love to have more than 10 units, but it's a start. And if we get 10 units here, that's a place where 2 people could be working full-time jobs at Market Basket or Hannaford or wherever, or Crooker, and be able to have a rent that they could afford. So ideally, would have a mix of everything. Because if we had everything just up to 60%, we're gonna find, we got a lot of working people in town, but
They would
there's no place to
qualify.
live. And I know Amaya wanted to give me credit, but this is part of that missing middle we need, where we've got people that can't afford market rate, but they can afford more than highly subsidized housing. This helps fill that in.
Yeah,
For
based on
10
based on dynamics of Greater Portland, I mean, those units are gone. If you think about people who would love to live in Topsham, they can't find anything here, they're working couples. Living in Portland, probably paying, $1,000 more for an apartment.
Which is the other nice thing that Phil's doing some research for us, who thinks it's probably okay based on a project he knows from Scarborough, is that Dave's willing, if Phil goes along with it, to give us a preference for people that work in Topsham for the entire project, or
Within
within
15
50 miles, so it
it.
helps people work in this area. Now, it's only a preference, so if we don't have people applying, it's free to obviously rent it to whoever, because he's gonna pay his bills. But if Phil is willing to bless it, Dave's willing to do it, correct?
Yes,
And that would be in the contract?
yes. Yeah, and we have seen a lot of local people. I mean, even now, there's a couple selling a house and moving in, to Sandpiper, and that's what we expect to see here, of people that don't wanna mow lawns and shovel and or they're in some kind of transition. There's a lot of local folks that aspire to live in a newer place, and it's really hard to find anything that was built, in the 1900s, let alone the 2000s.
Do you have firefighters that are looking for places as well?
Not that I know of,
Seems
off my head, but that certainly meets that same,
Same
at least that
criteria.
middle class there, yeah.
Closer the better.
The one?
Closer the better.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason I have struggled with this, or not struggled with that, we've drawn this out really a long time. It's been months, or a month, or many meetings, I should say.
Mm.
This is gonna make a very drastic change for the town of Topsham. And I think that's something that we are taking very seriously, understanding and trying to figure out where this fits, because this changes the core of the landscape. It also opens the doors for the next steps of likeness to come in. I just think that's a big decision. Whether it comes or not, with or without a TIF, with the valuations where they're placed. I've said it before, and I have the ability to change my mind. I came into this thinking one thing, I'm kind of questioning that now, but it sounds like, Mark, you changed your mind as well.
Exactly. In the last meeting, I think I said I didn't support it, because I wasn't sure Tom's gonna benefit
What was the shift?
when we did the math. Because we thought, in order to give a real informed opinion, we need to be able to do the math and figure it out. Once I did the math and saw that we're really not giving up much of anything, and we're gonna get 10 affordable housing units at 80% for 30 years. And then we get 50 other that are locked in at 120 for 30 years. And I think it's worth a try, and I don't think it's really gonna harm us financially.
Does this open the doors for developers saying, oh, we gave one, now everybody's gonna get one?
I actually talked to another developer of a project, and I was pushing him for more than 80%, but I said, if you could give me similar terms, we'll do the math, and if the math comes out similarly, I'm willing to push that one too.
I was on the fence when I came in today. I was kind of more for it before and kind of on the fence today, doing the calculations and how's it really gonna help people and what's gonna mean, because I'm thinking, okay, if there are 50 students at $20,000 to pay for their part of it, and how many more police officers do we need, and how many more firefighters do we need, and EMS people that we need. And so, when you were saying you lose $20,000 a year initially, I'm thinking, yeah, but there's so many other expenses that aren't in the calculations. And so I'm just really on the fence. I probably the thing that's making me lean a little toward it more is just you're saying, hey, we have staff that need places to live and they don't have a place to live. Those of us that lives in houses, we're all set, but what about we wanted to recruit people to come here and work here, where are they gonna live? So.
Not in this building. Not until Topsham has jobs that have high paying wages.
Hopefully never live in this one.
Right.
Unless it turned into like the Highlands 30.
I would also say it's a question of where does Topsham want your growth? Do you want it with this project in the village center, which you're able to decide on and make a decision, or is it gonna happen organically from single family homes in the rural parts of town that are cropping up and will keep coming if there's not another option?
Yeah, that's another negative in that the location, you're adding another 400 cars trying to get through that intersection every morning going to work. That's, you know, a potential problem as well because of the traffic flow in 196 and 201 section, so.
Doing my double duty, there's someone named Susan in Zoom that looks like they might like to ask a question.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
So, Susan, we're gonna allow you to talk, you can ask your question. Should be able to talk now.
Hello. I actually don't want to ask a question. I want to make a comment. Is that all right?
Fine with me, okay.
Great. It's really been wonderful to hear a bit of the presentation and also to hear some of the select board comments and questions. You know, as the chair of the town's comprehensive plan implementation committee, working for the past 4 years to help implement the vision of the 2019 comp plan, it seems to me that although the town didn't elaborate in detail on all aspects of its vision, but it certainly did talk about a more walkable town center, and it advocated for a more densely populated town center where there is existing infrastructure, water and sewer, and where people could walk to supermarkets. I mean, how wonderful would that be? So you're looking at all aspects of it, the school system and everything. We are desperate for more housing. And yes, this would be a change in the center of Topsham that is actually, I would say, pointed toward by the 2019 plan, and more than 600 town residents had a very active role in creating the vision that is spelled out quite nicely, I think, in that plan. So if any of the select board members are sort of concerned, is this consistent with the plan? I think you could rest assured that it fits right in. Thanks so much for letting me comment.
Thank you for your comments,
Thank you,
Susan.
Susan.
So my understanding is that what we're looking for tonight is to get this on the ballot.
So to save the cost of a special town meeting, talking to Phil, our thought was we would put this, since we have a town meeting coming in November as part of the elections, we prepare this so it could be voted on as part of the November elections. We still would have to have a public meeting, but we could do that probably for the amount of people that would show up on the TIF as part of the TIF process. So what we're looking for tonight, if you want us to proceed, is basically authorization to work with Dave and his group. They've also agreed to pay for the costs of Bernstein Sure to prepare the documents for us. So we talked to Phil last week and said, because we'll probably need to finalize things by the end of August so that we can get it on the November ballot. Is that enough time for you, Phil? And so usually people say, can I do it in a week? He says, yeah, we could do it in a month. So we'd work with Phil to get all this stuff ready so that we could be included on the November ballot. And then the town people can vote whether or not they would like to have it.
It's certainly a clear turnout in terms of people walking in the event.
Right.
So. Any other questions?
I don't have any more questions. I think that it's good to have an open mind and be able to change and take a chance, but the town has to vote on it, so let's see what they have to say.
That would be my final comment too. I think it's really hard to be the voice of a population that you don't know about. The comprehensive plan was built on a percentage of our town, and a lot of voices weren't heard in that. It's not by lack of effort. We tried to get everybody involved. Those are the people that showed up. But I don't want to interfere with that. I'd rather let the town, if the town's gonna vote on it, I would rather let the town vote. and let them make a decision and make sure they show up to have their voices heard.
One other, you don't have to make this decision tonight, but one of them to think about is when talking with the interns, they're like, this is so complex, how can the average person sort all this out? Like when we put other things on the warrant at town meeting, it probably would be helpful to have a recommendation. So again, you don't have to decide what yours is tonight, but it would be something to think about once we finalize the ballot item. So it would be helpful to have a recommendation.
And we'll have time to do that after the public comment.
We'll work that out as well, yeah, whether it's before that, depends on printing basically.
Well, let's face it, the idea of not shoveling and not having more people on, it's
Yeah.
really appealing. I'm sure that a lot of people would jump at that.
Can Roland have a list?
Absolutely. As long as he works in Topsham, we're good.
I'm not going to. All right, are we ready for the motion? Yeah, it's right.
I make a motion to authorize the town manager to work with Holman Homes to prepare documentation for a town vote on the TIF for this development at the November elections.
Motion, second.
Second.
Moving second, all in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you all for the time you put into this. I really appreciate it and excited to work with you in the months to come.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
You as well. Great work. All right. All right, on to new business, 2554. Consideration of any appropriate action on the request by MDOT to allow construction on the Route 295 bridge over the Androscoggin River and accessing town roads.
Good evening, Dennis Cox, Topsham Public Works Director. This is a very similar situation to what we've done in the past working with DOT. Department of Transportation is going to be doing bridge work on the 295 bridge over the Androscoggin River. And if you're not familiar with it, River Road runs underneath it. So there's some accessibility from town roads for that project. And they're asking for the towns to endorse their use of our roads. It doesn't give up our ability to post roads for weight limits or require the contractor to repair roads if they were damaged or anything like that. It's just a communication between DOT and the town.
How long ago was this done previously?
I don't know, Roland, when that.
I don't recall, that's why I was.
Yeah. I'm not sure, honestly. It includes guardrail work, paving work, and structural repairs to the bridge itself.
Any questions? Okay, have a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to allow the Maine Department of Transportation construction on the route of 295 bridge over the Androscoggin and this. Help me out here, folks. It's been a long day. Androscoggin River and accessing town roads.
Second.
Moving second, all in favor? 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 2555, consideration of inappropriate action to sell the old boat via sealed bid.
Good evening, Chris McGlone, Fire Chief again. This is pretty quick. Now that our new boat is here, it's in service. We need to sell the old one. What I've typically done in the past is send it out to town employees. I prepare the advertisement and then we put it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or some public forum. Give it 3 weeks. What we get back for bids is what we get, and we award usually the highest one. So I just want approval to do that.
Sure. I make a motion to sell the old boat via sealed bid. Can you be more specific about?
We only have one vote.
Okay.
No, and then I can, yeah, and then I pick a date that is due. I give it 3 or 4 weeks or so.
Okay.
You know, not months, but a couple weeks.
Sounds good.
Need a second?
Second.
Moving second, all in favor? All right, 2556, consideration of any appropriate action to award O'Connor Auto Parts in the amount of $61,287 for the purchase of a Tahoe to replace the fire chief's vehicle.
Yeah, me again. I have 3 more things, but I'm waiting till next one for those. We put out a RFP or bids for the Tahoe, sent it out to 5 local dealerships, received 2 back. O'Connor's and Quirk. Quirk was at 64, O'Connor's was at 61,287. I will say they also hand delivered their bid to me, and they did come to my office asking clarifying questions to go through some of the stuff that we were requesting, so they did put some time and effort into this. They are the lowest bid, so that would be my recommendation. It's also within budget, and it does leave some room to do radios, lights, command center, all that kind of stuff afterwards.
I hope you get it.
Well, it's a specialty vehicle that comes pre-wired with the light kits in like 6 months.
It's not bad considering.
No, it's considered 2, 3 years on a fire truck. Yeah. Yeah. So he said probably about 6 months is what they're out on those. Thanks.
Motion, please.
I would move that we award O'Connor Auto Park in the amount of $61,287 for the purchase of a Tahoe to replace the fire chief's vehicle.
Second.
Moving second, all in favor?
Thank you.
How's your driving record?
Perfect. Wait.
All right, 2557, consideration of any appropriate action to accept the state of Maine Bureau of Parks and Lands ATV grant on behalf of Topsham Trailriders.
Good evening, Pamela Dew, Parks and Recreation Director. Jenny, the president of the Topsham ATV Club, came before you back in April, asking permission to apply for a grant. This is a grant that we've worked with them on the past 3 years for, and it is at no cost for the town. We just simply administer the grant. Jenny does most of the paperwork, gives me, I go through it, send it to the state turns around and pays Kathy, or pays us electronically. Kathy lets me know it's there, and we write a check back to the ATV club. Next year, we're gonna remember to ask for permission to apply for it and accept it at the same time. Jenny caught us this year, we had neglected to do that, so we're before you tonight asking for permission to accept the grant and for us to start the process of reimbursing them.
What was the total on that?
40,500 with reimbursement availability of up to 36,450.
Yeah. It was in the memo. I said to her as I walked up, do you have the memo with you?
That's great.
I just have to tell you, they're a great group to work with. When they have questions, I hear from Jenny, we work together, we try to find workable solutions, and it's been a very easy job.
Great, thank you. Motion, please.
I was still writing the numbers down.
Okay, I can do it. I make a motion to accept the State of Maine Bureau of Parks and Lands ATV grant on behalf of the Topsham Trail Riders. In up to 40,500, and what's the lower number, 36,450.
Eligible reimbursements for 36,450.
That's what I missed.
Second, please.
Second.
Move second, all in favor? Yeah, I don't want you to get a sore throat when I All right, finally, 25, no, we have 2 more. 2558, consideration of any appropriate action to accept fill easements from Lawrence W. Stover and Central Topsham Associates. 2, in connection with the Tedford Road culvert replacement project.
As you may remember, we discussed, we wanted to do sidewalks at the same time we did the Tedford Road culvert, because we don't have to go back later for permitting, and it's a lot more expensive to have later. But when Wright Pierce did the design, they realized there isn't enough space in the right of way to do the appropriate slope down from the street, to add in the 6 feet for the sidewalk, or 5 feet, whatever the number is. So we need some basically ability to fill property that belong to the people that have bought the road. There's 2 groups. There's a gentleman, Larry Stover. He's so excited to have this project done because he wants to get rid of this mosquito area that he was more than happy to give an easement. So he's signed off quick. And then Central Topsham Associates, part of Highland Green, they wanted to have their attorney look at it. He modified a little bit. Phil's happy with that. What you saw was the version that I think was redlined. But since then, Phil's agreed to it, and they've agreed they're willing to sign it. So we'd like permission to accept those easements on behalf of the town, so that when we build the street, we complete the sidewalk.
Any questions? Motion.
I would move that we accept fill easements from Lawrence W. Stover and Central Topsham Associates in connection with the Tedford Road culvert replacement project.
Second. Moved and seconded, all in favor? And 2559.
One of our tax acquired properties that we got this year, we were approached by the former owner of it, Richard Burnell. He's asked for permission to get it all caught up and get the property back in its name. The sum of $10,666.27, if it's paid by August 12th, 2025, would allow that to happen. He says he will do that. So we seek your permission tonight for me to be able to, actually, rather than mobile home though, you can tell I used a prior memo and updated it. It would just say the real property because it's not a mobile home, it's a house. So the proposed motion be to authorize the treasurer to convey the real property to the
Take your prepared.
Okay, I make a motion to authorize the treasurer to convey the real property located at 6 Half Court to Richard Burnell, provided that the sum of $10,666.27 is paid by August 12th, 2025.
Second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor? 4-0.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second,
Very good. All in favor?
I was ready to get to that before the 28:59. I was like motion two, and then you said next one.
So, yeah, you know you'll be better on.
Yeah.
You can't, but you'll be better. Numbers really mean something when you're talking dollars and cents.
Oh, yeah, we have to sign.
Oh, that's right. Thanks for
Yeah, for the
keeping
DLT.
me on.
Yeah. We all have to sign?
Yeah, we can.
There's a place for all $5.
Okay.
So you apologize for me.
Yeah, that's why I was
Oh, really?
500 people.
Yeah, so
Really? Denver?
Biggest one.
Wow.
It's here. Shannon Bellows there
Yeah.
speaking. I have all the gubernatorial warrants.
Is that one?
Very good.
So the question is, what did you do on the important part?
They voted to authorize me to work with developers to propose a TIF that would be voted on in November.
But the details are still to be worked out.
Yeah, exact details, but it's basically the proposed one would be a 60-40 split. So the developer would get 60%, town would get 40%.
Can I have you explain that on, could you do that very well?
Please, sure.
Hold on a second.
have a good night, everybody.
Good
I
night.
gotta rush out
Good
for
night,
big
Fred.
boys.
Thank you, Maria.
So just, yeah. What's gonna happen?
With the help of our voting students, we analyzed the net effect to the town of the project.
Then I
with or
figured
without
out
TIF.
I only have like
And we
6
found
months.
that it was gonna cost the town almost as much to pay what we would pay the developer, to pay and increase school costs, county taxes, and reduce revenue sharing. So
freed up a
the
lot.
select board voted tonight to authorize me to work with the developer.
It's
to
supposed to
do
be,
a
number of days it's open.
compare TIF of 60% to
Only one
the
guy.
developer, 40%
Like,
to
these
the
are not,
town.
used to be like.
In return, the
Sunday
town
to
would
Sunday,
get
wasn't
50 units that are no more costly than
Saturday,
120%
some
of
7
their
days.
median
Yeah.
income. 80,
But 6.
sorry, 10 units that are no more expensive than 80% of their median income. So also, as long as it's.
Well, the
permitted,
reason why it got
legally, we have
changed
preference
is
for people
because
that live in the
the,
project, that work in
Midway,
Thompson or work within 15 miles.
the
of Thompson.
days, I guess,
They have no time to travel.
No.
well,
Very good, and
in
I'll
the
edit out
old
that,
days,
yeah.
they could
My stuttering.
tear down
It's amazing.
at one
I've
fair
made,
Sunday night.
people who can
And
hardly
set up,
functionally speak into like
you know,
words.
or
Oh,
Saturdays.
So this helps me.
I mean, I tried,
With
to,
all
you know,
the
cut out
paperwork
people,
and
but the
everything.
idea is
Couldn't
that